So hello, welcome to the 29th edition of eHacks TV, and after 2 weeks, so it was a short period, I gathered some questions. Also, I'm going to answer some comments from my blog, and this time is a half an hour later, and the reason for this is I decided to create some slides, which is unusual, because the reason is also unusual, so you will see in a second. So let's start with the content. So the question I got via email is whether I will record an online version for the React and Angular 2 workshops. And the answer is not yet. What I usually do, I just deliver a few workshops in Munich, and then I tweak the contents and see what is interesting and what not so, and then I record the online version. It's not like I start with the online and then try it in Munich. So this will come probably in 2017. And before I will deliver React or Angular 2, I will probably start with JavaScript or TypeScript or something like this. And also nice news, there are already sufficient registrations for all the workshops in December and October. So see you soon in Munich. So now let's start with the contents. So what happened was something really interesting. I already told you or show you the article about Oracle and Java EE commitment in the register, and it was somehow unofficial. And then what happened was there was another article, and this claims to be exclusive interview with Thomas Kurian about Oracle to reboot Java EE for the cloud, which is somehow interesting, but really interesting. This is confirmed by Oracle itself. So there is on July 27th, there is a executive viewpoints, Oracle News, Kurian outlines Java EE next steps. And it also links to the article on InfoWorld, which makes it really interesting. So, and what I did is I just tried to summarize the article on a slide, and there are some really interesting points here. So I will start, to cover the points, and I thought it would be better, to have 10 bullet points, just copy and paste it from the article, then, read the article for you. Okay, so the slides. So what says Oracle has a very clean plan for Java EE 8, which is nice. So what actually means is that Oracle commits to Java EE 8. So something will come out, and it takes seriously the whole Java EE 8, which is of course unclear why nothing happens on JCP, whether they preferred to implement some proof of concept or whatever in-house first and then push it to JCP. So no one knows actually what happens behind the scenes. The next one is also interesting. So I just, this is except from the article, is unmodified from me. Oracle plans to fit Java EE 8 with capabilities for persisting data in key value store. And this is really interesting because before Java EE 7, there were several sessions at Java 1, and the spec leads from JPA tried to think, how a NoSQL API could look like. And the problem was there are so many NoSQL data stores, document-based and key value store-based and graph-based, that it's really hard to provide one single API, for all of them. And also the question, back then I asked myself, why not just JPA? And if you know, for instance, Morphia from MongoDB, it looks very like JPA. So it's not like you couldn't use JPA annotations to model NoSQL databases. So I'm really curious what happens here and whether JPA is going to be extended. I don't think so, because then they will have to file a new GSR, or whether they will start with completely new NoSQL GSR, which could be even more interesting. And by the way, right now I'm using several NoSQL data stores, and I am accessing them via JSON. I just use JSON P and JAX-RS to access them. Also works perfectly with Java EE 7. So the next topic was modernizing Java EE for the cloud. What's also interesting, this was actually the main theme for Java EE 7, like multi-tenancy and better monitoring and deployment. And then they decided to roll it back because there was no clear requirements for this. So three days later, I think there is now enough material or enough requirements, enough experience with the underlying technology to know what can be standardized. So this is going to be the main scheme for Java EE 8, like clouds and containers. So today, Java EE does not have a formalized model for app developers on how an app server can provide multi-tenancy. And this is So WebLogic does that. There's even the recent one. It has a multi-tenancy capabilities. But what's interesting in my project is we don't even attempt that. So what we probably misuse the application server as a container for a single application. So multi-tenancy would mean in my projects we will have several installation or deployments of the same application on different Docker containers, for instance. And what Oracle thinks, I guess, is having one application server and deploying multiple wars which are isolated to one application server, which of course saves some RAM, I would say, per microservice, I don't know, let's say 50 megs of RAM. But from the viewpoint from a cloud provider, this is a big deal, because if you are Oracle or Gelastric or something like this, you could save a lot of hardware because you don't have the application server overhead. From project perspective, or I would say private cloud perspective, I don't think it matters whether your application consumes 50 megs or 70 megs, because because if you run 20 microservices and the overhead is like 1 gig of RAM, you will lose a few euros, so or dollars. It really does not matter in my eyes. But this is interesting how it is meant. I don't believe in shared deployment model. So what I believe is thin wars and application servers, and this seems to be a little bit opposite from the direction, which is understandable from the cloud perspective. Then Java EE will likely also receive security improvements. So we have it already. There's a great work from Arjan Teams. And if you follow his GitHub account, there's even a reference implementation called Soteria. And you can use it right now in Java 7 environments. It's a great extension to current security model. I think it is going to make into Java 8. It will be also interesting to see whether Oracle has something else, something different, which I do not believe, because this spec was also driven by Oracle. There were Oracle people working on it. So I think this is, so the future is now. Go to GitHub and play with Soteria. So even more interesting. So the next slide, Java EE current configuration model is getting old. I mean, of course, I would say not only old, it's not usable. So I think no one uses JNDI anymore to configure the applications. That model can be improved via technologies such as Docker and other container technologies. And of course, so if you are using an application server as multi-tenancy provider, you have to be very the configuration capabilities have to be excellent to do this. But again, what I do right now is, if you're curious, go to the microservices workshops I actually implemented this live. What you can do right now is, if there is one-to-one relation between application server and the war, you can of course use system variables, for instance, very, very conveniently from Docker. And with one-liner, you can inject whatever you like from the Docker environment. And this works great in all my projects. So there is no big deal in Java 7. But of course, if the goal is being multi-tenant, or supporting multi-tenancy, then of course the configuration has to be isolated, and each war or each microservice has to see the own configuration. What would be also interesting, something like runtime configuration, like being able to disable or enable something via JMX, for instance, could be also interesting. And interesting what happens here. What's also happened, there was a GSR for configuration for Java EE, and I don't think it is active anymore, or it didn't mate to Java 8. It will be also interesting to see whether this spec is going to be reactivated for Java 8, or Oracle sees something complete different. It's also interesting, how it's getting to be evolved, because Oracle will have to file some GSRs. Otherwise, I don't think we can call it Java 8. So if just Oracle will come out with something like, I don't know, like Genie, 15 years ago, then it will be Oracle's EE, but it couldn't be called, I think, Java EE. So it's really interesting times right now. So Java EE does not have an elegant model for how you do a reactive style of programming. And this is true. Actually, you can do a lot with Java 8, but it's not elegant. So you need to know at least some setup. So you will have to inject your executor service and use, for instance, completable future. Again, if you're curious, go to the microservice workshop, or at least clone the examples. They're completely free on GitHub. And how to do reactive style of programming. So what could be, for instance, interesting in Java 8, consider like the queues or CDI events as event sources, which can be then, consumed by somehow of reactive style JSR, API or JSR. Also interesting what happens here, whether all the JSR is going to be adjusted to be reactive, or we get another like adapter spec which going to to consume all the others. Java 8 would have stronger support for HTTP 2 than originally intended. I mean, I think it was the Reza Rahman from the Java EE Guardians always said, HTTP 2 is big deal and has to be supported by servlets. So I think everyone knows that HTTP 2 is critical. So what is HTTP? With HTTP 2, it changes completely the game. So this is like WebSockets standard. So you will be able to have multiple full duplex connections between the browser and server, and the browser and the server is going to be able to push content to browser before it is going to be really needed. So you can speed up times, and it will change, of course, also the build system of HTML5 applications, because bundling probably is not going to be necessary anymore. So this is a big deal. So my understanding is HTTP 2 will also be part of JDK. So it would be interesting to see which part is going to be covered by JDK and which part of Java EE. And also interesting, Kuyan said would like to see convergence around a single specification for using microservices with Java EE. And in the article, this micro profile IO was mentioned, and this was the answer. So okay, I would like to see us convergence. So what it actually means is, this is my understanding, that Oracle is willing to work with Red Hat, IBM, and the others to support microservices spec. There was actually no commitments to dates, so there was Kurian couldn't say whether Java 8 is going to be delayed or not. But I have to say, I don't care with the delays of Java 8 at all. So I don't know why so many people are impatient with the Java EE. Java 7 is perfect. So this is one. I remember a recent project we only had Java 6, and we could upgrade to Java 7, but it didn't work for some minor reasons, and we just went with Java 6 and we were happy. And with Java 7 would be a little bit nicer, but it's not like we couldn't deliver. So it was just minor changes. And the same is going to be with Java 8. If Java 8 will come late, so we can still deliver great, simple, effective, and productive microservice project with Java 7, and we will migrate later to Java 8. So not a big deal. And it's a whole delaying of Java EE is just like. The revolution already happened. So what we now get is, a small chunks of improvements. It's not like each new version will introduce a full new stuff. And this is, I'm full with Thomas Kurian. So listen, at the end of the day, he said, we believe that if we are doing the right thing for the developer community, we believe the developer community will rally around it. Absolutely. So if they really manage to deliver Java 8 in the right way, it means simple, productive, no strange, interactions again, like JNDI and assembly roles or whatever, then absolutely. So if the dictator does the right thing, it may work. And what we should have all keep in mind is that the spec is properly developed by the people who developed Java 7 and Java 6 at Oracle. So the former Sun and Oracle Java engineers. So it's not like, they will kill the old legacy from Java 7 and reboot everything to have Java 8. So I guess the Java 8 will be right on track. What's also interesting, so not in the InfoWorld article, in the other article was mentioned that Oracle shared the info with partners, and so far I don't know any partner who has the information, know what happens behind the scenes. So why this critical? So if Oracle, let's say at Java 1, and this is actually mentioned that at Java 1 Oracle will reveal the concrete plans, but I think what should happen, that Oracle will inform, Red Hats and IBM and all the others and the Tommy Tribe guys to give them some time to implement the Java 8. Otherwise, you will get WebLogic, which supports Java 8, and no other web vendor will use Java 8, and then I guess no one would be interested in Java 8 anymore. I think the only value we get from Java EE is that we have this JCP, so we can download, all the PDFs, all the JavaDoc from one place, and to implement the application or to make the application functional, we rely on the API, and we can use the edit features from the vendors, but we don't have to implement the application. And this is the great deal. If this is not given, so let's say with Java 8 we only run on WebLogic and the others won't support this, then forget about Java E. I think then there will be mass exodus, not from Glassfish to JBoss, there will be mass exodus from WebLogic and all the others to Spring Boot or whatever you get, Drop Wizard, Spring Boot and all the others. So then we get far better technologies than this. Okay. This was the first time at EarHacks I showed you some slides, and so I think it is actually might be a good idea to create an overview what I would actually to say what I recognized the last time I forgot lots of stuff to mention. So slides are over, so now we can close the PDF slides, and this was the article. This was InfoWorld article. This was the blog. So if you search for this is the official website from Oracle, and this is the older at the register article, not that old, as July the 7th, and yeah, this was this. So now textual. What's here? So we have lots of attendees here. No questions in Twitter, no questions in chat. And someone from Greece. Okay, cool. So at least one other from Greece officially. So and the others. So if you like, just drop your country. It's also interesting to say to see from where you are listening or watching. So we are at TV. Okay, next, or the first point is serving files without a war. This is follow up to question from the last EarHacks, and there was, where was it? Someone there was follow up. Yes, this was from Mihai, and he said, okay. It's absolutely clear that you can obtain, to fetch the log files from Glassfish without any problems. But what to do if you only have an EGP jar, no war, and you would like to load the files? So still, what you can do, you can implement or reuse my connector. So I wrote this connector as example for the book Rethinking Java E Patterns. Actually killing Java E patterns. And I implemented a bucket store which is able to access files in transactional way. So this is a little bit overkill, but it's the formal way to do so. The problem with EJBs, they are officially not allowed because of programming restrictions to access the Java IO package. Sorry, to use Java IO to access files in local directory. But if you know what they are doing, you can still do it. So you can still, say new file, open stream or whatever to access the contents. Why? Because no one will prevent you to do this. You have to be aware that it is slow. If it's slow, a transaction can be blocked or locked. So you get a transaction timeout. In worst case, your application server will die because of deadlocks, for instance. But this is obvious that such a thing can happen. What is also obvious is why it is forbidden. This is also forbidden because if you are running in a cluster, it will be hard to coordinate if you change device. So it is not an easy problem to solve. But if you're just reading log files, just go for it. So just open the stream, and the harder part is going to be if the file is going to be huge, it is harder to implement streaming via remote EGB interfaces. This will be the challenge. With JAX-RS, no problem at all. You can use a thing is called streaming output. So you could stream the log files back. With EJBs, there is no streaming because it's just RMI. So you could implement streaming, but it doesn't come, out of the box. But if the log file is manageable, I don't know, a view max, you can just return them as a string or a byte array or whatever, and this will absolutely work. Okay. So Java EE performance monitoring and results interpretation. So what I did, I showed you the last time the Lightfish monitoring application. So what it does, it connects to Glassfish and Payara and views transactions and sessions and whatever. And now the question is, now we have lots of data. So what to do with it? So what you can do with the data? And this is like, if you monitor the application, you just need monitoring for fun. What I'm interested in is, for instance, how big is the session? So this can be hardly achieved with Lightfish because you will have to create a heap dump. But this would be the question: how big is my session, if there is any, for instance, with JSF? The next question is, how many transactions per second am I able to deliver? Why it is critical? Because then the peak. If you know the peak transaction, let's say your application is able to deliver 2,000 transactions per second, you can set up bulkheads like thread pools. You can set up timeouts, and you can basically throttle your service at, let's say, 2,800. So it will be never overwhelmed by the traffic, or you can prevent denial of service attacks. And of course, what I do first in my performance measurements is basically watching all the charts, and all the charts have to be flat. So there cannot be that it allocates more and more resources. So or charts-driven resources has to be flat. So like a number of threads, number of classes loaded, number of memory acquired. This had to be flat. If it goes up over time, we have a resource leak, and this usually means trouble. So, but what is not possible, is just to connect with Lightfish to Payara and look at this and say it's good or bad, because you actually not know what the application is doing. If your application is accessing just stored procedures, and the stored procedures are slow, and so you will see you're only able to achieve 20 transactions per second. This is like it is, and it cannot be changed. In one project, we had to use a German backend system with 3 letters, and it was too slow for our purposes, and our application server was actually very fast, but it looked from Lightfish as if everything was slow. Okay. Similar question: software quality with Sonar and Java EE. And basically, I actually forgot to start Sonar. So before start Sonar, let's start Sonar. It actually runs. So this is a Sonar is like my test instance of Sonar, and what I was asked here was how to deal with Java performance monitoring and software quality with Sonar, Java rules, defaults, and real world. So what I meant by that in the question is there is a company. And in the company, they think that the standard rule set of Sonar is the best, and they are not allowed to change that. So how to deal with that? And it's hard to answer. What I do usually, so what I set up is usually this view, and what this view basically what it says is the size of the font is the complexity, and the color is the test coverage. And we have the simple rule: complex code has to be tested, and simple code no one cares about this. So this would be okay. This is also okay. So the number providers probably you just getters and setters, no complexity at all. So complexity 1. So if you go to this, there is complexity 1. If there is no if else, complexity 1. If there would be if else, there will be complexity of 3, because of three execution path in the method. And this is a little bit more complex. So it's if else if on return, and therefore we have complexity of 7. So basic rule: everything which is more complex than 3 has to be unit tested. Okay. Now, what other rules are interested? So if we go to the so first, if you are building, let's say, a BC boundary control entity application, in my way, which means all injected fields are not private, so you get a lot of violations, like major violations. You have to encapsulate fields, whatever, because Sonar is not aware that you are running in Java E context. So what we always do, we adjust the rules. So in the beginning phase of the project, we look at the rules, and so this and this rule do not matter, and we just constantly, change the configuration in the rules. And this is a good thing. But I cannot remember that we ever used Sonar out of the box, because it doesn't make any sense. You will get, or what developers will do, they will provide a comment, no Sonar, and then they will exclude, the evaluation. So I think this is the mandatory rule. And then if we go to, wait a second, we have here a dashboard, and somewhere, let's go to a project, let's say calculator. And we have here the trends are interesting. So if we go to time machine, this is what I look for. So what you can also say, over time, the complexity, if it increases the whole time, is a bad sign, and the coverage should remain stable or increase, but not decrease. And if the coverage decreases and the complexity increases over time, this is a bad sign. What I don't care at all is, of course, the comments. They should be, deactivated. Duplicated lines is a good one, because I think it is a good thing. So if you, in microservice world, the duplicate lines is going to be high. And because you are working at the beginning with lots of copy and paste, without microservices, there is no duplication. So, and it is always, in the context. You cannot just say, if the microservice project, you have no duplicated lines, is probably not a microservice project, because there is no copy and pasted code. If there is no copy and pasted code, you get lots of shared code. And if you have shared code, you cannot be independent. So, the time machine, look at the time machine, and think about what you would like to achieve with your project. If decoupling, then you get more duplicated lines, at least at the beginning, and then hopefully there will be less and less duplicated lines. And lines of code, of course, should increase. But this is what we never. I would start with the dashboard view I showed you earlier, and then watch closely the time machine, and then adjust the violations. This is what I would do. Okay, I hope it's covered. I will just quickly go to the. Wow, lots of conversation already. So, watching from a moving train in Netherlands. This is nice. This is nice, and we have someone from Nigeria, Africa. So Alamin, France is not that bad. France. We have Costa Rica, moving trains in Netherlands. By the way, I was in Netherlands. I came late to a project, and they told me the reason. They told me the official excuse from the Dutch railways was the train has to go slow because there were leaves from the trees on the how it's called, forgot, on the track. And therefore, the train has to move slowly. So in Germany, we have different excuses, but never because of no leaves on the tracks. Okay, question: if I use inject with singleton that injects another singleton that injects two singletons that injects a singleton each, why do I need to provide interfaces tagged with local remote? Nice, Nemo. Nemo, you are absolutely right. Just delete all the interfaces. You don't need any local and remote interfaces, never. So you can just inject whatever you like without local and remote interfaces. Watch the last, I think, in the 28th Airhacks TV, I just mentioned an article or a blog post I wrote. Is one of the recent blog posts I said local and remote interfaces are deprecated. Oh, a nice name. I'm a .NET guy returning to the Duke side of the force. Yes, but I have to say, Microsoft and .NET is like Sun was earlier. So it's not like, we have just bright bright sides, like Microsoft and Dukes are or friends. Okay, Paris, France, nice. Okay, so where we were here. So is there any way, and they were actually the official questions because they were just 2 weeks away. And what I did then, I say, okay, this is great because then I can cover some questions from my blog. This actually was the origin intent from Airhacks TV, just to cover my blog comments and questions. And I never did it because I get too many online questions and questions which were here from GitHub. So a question. Is there any way to find an EJB which is capable of accessing persistence, context, and anti-listener? And this is interesting. So if we go here, there's an article from me or blog post why sometimes a reference to an entity manager inside JPA entities is needed. And the funny story is I wrote the blog post as a background to convince the JPA spec leaks back then that we need, the reference. So that we need dependency injection of entity manager to entities, and I still couldn't convince them. But there are lots of support from the community. But there's still meanwhile we have Java 7. There's still no injection of entity manager in JPA. So, and is there any way to find an EJB? Yeah, actually in entity listener you can just inject whatever you like with Java 7. So it's solved. So if you have an entity listener, in the entity listener, just dependency injection should work. There was a bug in Whitefly, but this is just a bug. It should work. And also funny story is, in the effective workshop, online workshop from Airhacks.io, I did it. So I injected in entity listener, I can remember EJB or a CDI bean, and I used the whole training Whitefly. And I knew about the bug, and I mentioned in the course. Okay, now I'm switching to Payara, and then I proceed with Payara, and many of the attendees, online attendees, didn't recognize that, and I got lots of emails. It does not work. Why not? And I just always pointed to the bug in Whitefly. So on the same note is entity manager serialization and clustering. So there was a blog comment. What I did earlier is the following. Sometimes I injected the entity manager to stateful EJBs, and what you could do then is all the entities, they will remain attached for the duration of the session. And what you can do with this is you can basically expose the entities to the view, for instance JSF, and it can be manipulated in a wizard-like fashion. So you can have 5 different views, and in the last view you will save or commit a transaction. So you can save a lot of code. And the problem, of course, is if the application server would try to replicate the state of the stateful session bean, it could attempt to serialize the entity manager. But usually the application servers should know that the entity manager is not a serializable state rather than a resource, and this is not going to be serialized. So the application servers are aware of this, and it should not happen. I actually didn't test it a lot, and the reason for this is I don't believe in application server clustering, because if you think about stateful EJBs, if you would cluster the state of a stateful session bean or the state of session scope CDI bean, which is the same technology, how it would work is you are writing synchronously to a to a cluster node, and the server would replicate the state to another cluster node synchronously or asynchronously. If you switch to synchronously, it is terribly slow and you get probably deadlocks. If it's asynchronous, it is just cannot be consistent. So usually we disable the whole replication altogether in cluster of session, for HTTP session and stateful session beans, what basically means no serialization of content, but also if the session fails, the user will have to relog, or the state is lost, which would mean here is if the state of the entity manager is lost, whatever happened between transactions is also get lost, which is perfectly perfectly viable, because it's the same what happens if you have, you know, an text document opened and it just crashes and you didn't save it. So this is exactly the same behavior. So then I get a question from Twitter, and the question is about BC. Can I relate entities from different components? If not, is there a way to around it? Absolutely. It was always meant this way. A component, entities from one component can access entities from other components. What should never happen is that entities from one component access controls or boundaries from other component. So this is how it was always meant. If you would forbid this or prevent this, you couldn't use, you know, joins between entities, between components, which would be terrible. Okay, another question covered. And by the way, what is the state of the union here? So still, we still cannot inject the entity manager to the entity, so there is no way around this. So there is way around this, but there is no standard way of injected entity manager to JPA entities. And why I wanted to have this, because sometimes if you are in highly complicated, you know, you have to implement more evolved algorithms. You would like, for instance, to create entities, dependent entities from the main entity and just persisting them to the entity manager, for instance, or perform queries directly from one entity. If you consider an entity as an object, not as a data holder, it makes perfectly sense to have a reference to the entity manager. And of course, we'll just suggest it from the spec list back then is you can put the entity manager as a parameter or constructor, but this is not really not a good idea. Okay. So just forgot GitHub, and I forgot the very first question: how far we can go with Java EE and akka interoperability. So this is 15 days ago. So what akka is a little bit similar, or is similar to message-driven beans in Java EE. So akka is like you have actors. They were called actors, is like message-driven beans, and they have an inbound queue which is called, I think, inbox, and they have own threading model. I think it's called ticks, and they receive the messages from the inbox model and do something with it, and it's a nice agent-like model. And the question is, you know, the interoperability. The question is, what do you mean by interoperability? So, because you know, if you have akka, you don't need an application server. But if you would like, you know, to integrate somehow akka with the application server, you can always, you know, have like a akka microservice which communicates via WebSockets or JAX-RS with the application server. This is always possible. So, but it does not matter whether this is akka, Node.js, or whatever. But you can also do, this is the akka documentation. What you can do, of course, you can set up your own fork join executor. And what you could do, of course, is you can inject the managed executor service from application server, and then akka would use your managed threads, and you can monitor your threads. And what you could even do, you can use Porcupine, my 3-class project. And what Porcupine does, it will create on-the-fly executor services, make them injectable, and then you could get nice statistics. So akka would use application server threading model, and this would be, I think, the tightest integration you could possibly get. Okay. Perfect. So we had the serialization, we have the references, and now, we are pretty fast. There's a new question 9 hours ago, so I have to read it first. Trying to develop 2 web applications based on WebSocket using Tommy Plus. So Tommy, a great application server. Go to Tommy Tribe, check it out. It's like Tomcat on steroids. Idle timeout issues and how to handle those errors, especially on the server side. So I think in WebSocket there is no server on client. So if you have 2 web applications, there are 2 peers which communicate with each other. As far as I remember, there is a timeout method in the session. So all these errors and timeouts can be handled by the session. What I would want is for the server to send a message with timeout of few seconds, and if it fails, execute some business logic. So, and there is an annotation on close, and on close should be open on timeout. So should be invoked on timeout. So if you are developing a WebSockets application, they are annotations like on open, on close, on, let's wait a second, WebSockets on close. Java E. So there's close reason. So when a WebSocket session is closing, and the WebSocket session is going to be closed in case a timeout happens. So this, and on the session, and I'm just interested in close reason. What is here predefined? Are there some predefined close codes? And I'm pretty sure there should be timeout. Is here timeout? No, there's no timeout. But on the session, there are lots of methods where you can adjust, get max idle timeout. This is what you probably mean, and there is set max idle timeout. So what should happen is if you invoke this set max idle timeout, and then I would expect that on close is going to be invoked, and never tested this, so I read the question too late, and this on close should happen. If it doesn't happen, it's probably a bug on the Tommy side, or you could request it at least as a feature. If this wouldn't work, what you can of course do is you could do on the other side, you could just measure the time for the connection and then close it explicitly, so something like this. So but try the on close and it should work. This is actually the official way of doing this. Okay, now we have, I think, all questions answered, but we have, let's go here. How to update Payara. If I run the update tool, it pulls stuff from Oracle. This is nice. You should file a bug from this is actually nice. This is an update tool, an old tool from update tool from Glassfish. What I do I use actually Payara. Either I download the latest release. So this is a longer question. How to update Payara? So what I believe is it's called immutable infrastructure. So if I run currently application servers, the first thing I do, either I launch them in a Docker container, or I launch the application servers on my disk, but I configure them using scripts. So then it is actually I tested download NetBeans, Glassfish, no, update. What I had in one point of time, I had wrote a script like update Glassfish, and what it did, it downloaded Glassfish from Oracle, or Payara from Payara, and then run my script, which set up all my environment like JVM settings, and so you can use easily AS admin tool for this, and then you have a robust way, actually the same way you will need on continuous integration. So I never used the update tool from Oracle. Nice. So how to, iframes microservices for EIH. So hi Adam, what do you think about event bus in microservice architecture? So far, all my projects we use JAX or REST between microservices. Now we're thinking about using WebSockets, And in one project, we use JMS because it's clustered anyway, and we don't have any single point of failure, but usually just JAX-RS. Okay, so would you go with Angular 1.5? Actually, right now I'm using in production Angular 2. So right now I'm using Angular 2.0. So if you're starting right now, just Angular 2.0. Angular 1 is too different. I guess we are done. So all the questions are answered, I hope. Hey, this is from the train. Hopefully without leaves on the track in Netherlands. So thank you, Hans Kruse. So this is, I hope we don't get, any endless loop, because if you are showing, streaming me from Twitter, I'm streaming you. So otherwise we know we can shut down the internet. So thank you for watching. See you now in 4 weeks. So you have enough time to ask questions on GitHub. And yeah, have a great summer, go out and play. Not just spend all the time on the behind the machine. And see you on upcoming conferences. I'm going to Java 1. My session was approved, so I just have just one session this time. I'm wiser. Usually I spent I delivered several sessions. Java 1 had no time to do anything else. But I was, this time my Java 1 was going to be short. I would spend, I think, only 2 days in San Francisco, something like this. Deliver one session about real-world microservices. So this is actually my intent to show this. Otherwise, see you at conferences, workshops in Munich Airport or online. And see you in September. Thank you and bye.